Episode 7, Soucouyant, a Caribbean supernatural tale. An example, not an inspiration. Hello, fellow travelers. I am Dr. Richard Hector. Welcome to Episode 7 of Soucouyant, a Caribbean supernatural tale, where we reimagine the Soucouyant, a character from the folklore of the Caribbean. Here we follow her as she is depicted in Trinidad. Her depiction might be different in other places in the Caribbean. A few of my listeners suggested that I change my voice for different characters when I do the dialogue. So I will try it for the first time in this episode. We'll see how this works out together. In episode 6, we saw the Soucouyant interacting with the police officers, and that meeting with John and the police officers was able to elicit the human response in her. Here we get to the conclusion of the first encounter with the Soucouyant. In the previous episode, she reached up and pecked John on the cheek. Their cheeks brushed lightly. Her teardrop wet his cheek and was quickly absorbed by his skin. "I guess I can't say no after you did it," John said. "You could give it back," she laughed. "Nah, it's okay," he said. "Since it's done there, let it stay." He laughed. "Thanks," she said. "Yummy boy." "Oh, you speak Spanish?" said John, surprised. "Then, vaya con Dios," he said in Spanish. "Or with something," she responded with a laugh. She turned and started walking towards the main road. Irons chuckled and headed back home. After a while, he looked back for her, but she was gone. The road had a slight bend, and he assumed that he did not see her because she had rounded the bend. He thought for a second that she could not have walked fast enough to have reached it so soon. But another thought intruded and reasoned that she was late for work, so she was walking really fast. That conclusion was not a good fit, but enough somehow to satisfy him. He called his foreman and focused on getting home. When he got home, his wife was still in bed asleep. He undressed and got into bed with her. She snuggled against him. He embraced her tightly, cupping her breast, and she woke up. Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm very much okay," he answered. "Good." She snuggled back into his chest. He put his lips on the back of her neck, then moved his tongue against her skin. She gasped, then reached back and touched his cheek. He moved his tongue more strongly. She inhaled deeply. Oh," she uttered and moved her fingers into his hair, pulling his mouth more firmly against her neck. He responded by moving to the side of her neck. She moaned and pressed backwards against him. "Ooh, that's good," she said. She was now fully awake. He responded by lightly sucking her skin. "You do realize what you're starting, yes?" she asked. "Yes, I do." He paused and responded. "Good," she said. "You saying that word a lot this morning," he observed. She turned to face him and said, "Good." They kissed and made love for the rest of the morning. When they were satisfied, she watched him on the pillow, trying to keep his eyes open as he looked up at her. She smiled as his eyelids fluttered like window curtains, then closed. She got up, took a shower, dressed, and went into the kitchen. The sun was high in the sky, but she felt quiet and serene. It was past her usual breakfast time. She smiled to herself at what she had for breakfast and decided to start cooking lunch. She checked the cupboard. They had a little split peas and a little bit of rice, maybe a cup and a half. She opened the freezer and saw 2 lonesome-looking chicken wings. She took them out and put them in water to defrost them faster. She stewed the chicken and made a watery dal with the split peas. She ate rice with just a little dal and gravy. She left the split peas and chicken for John. He would be hungry when he woke up. As she was cleaning up after her meal, the Susu banker came by and gave her $2,000. "Mary, darling, You haven't come to pick up your hand. Everybody took theirs long time already. I say you rich we, and could afford to forget about all this money. The banker gently scolded her, then continued. When a couple of weeks went by and I didn't see you, I decided to walk up and see you. Oh, gom, Dorothy, sweetie, you really are an angel, said Mary. We're not rich, but I really forgot it. Well, dear, you're an angel too, so I decided to bring it up here. I feel the spirit move me, and I just had to do it, said Dorothy. Well, since you come all the way here, may I offer you a cup of tea? Asked Mary. I don't want to be a bother, replied Dorothy. Cha! It's not a bother at all. I was about to make a cup for myself. Mary brewed tea, and they sat enjoying the day. John snorted in his sleep. Dorothy looked at the curtain to the bedroom and she realized John was still asleep at home. In this community, men, especially working men, are not asleep in the middle of the morning. Realization flitted across her face and crinkled her eyes in both amusement and admiration. She looked back at Mary, who blushed. The banker laughed out loud. Mary studied her tea, but chuckled. Don't be shy for putting him to sleep. That mean you're doing your work, said Dorothy. You're right. He came back home this morning. He didn't go to work, said Mary. Sounds to me like he well went to work, laughed Dorothy. Hush now. You're trying to embarrass me. Don't be embarrassed. If you don't take care of him, some woman will do it for you. Not with John, but I get your point. They both laughed. Their friendship was as easy as it was long. After a few moments, Dorothy pat her friend on the shoulder and said, Darling, let me head down and start cooking lunch. We must lime some more. We don't do it enough. Yes, I agree. Thanks for bringing the hand. I really appreciate it, said Mary. She looked at the money, amazed and puzzled at how completely she had forgotten about it. But the more she wondered about it, was the more solidly she remembered making the payments. It felt it was so many months ago. She did not even count the money. She knew that Dorothy was a stickler for the amount of the hands. They were sitting on the back stairs enjoying the view and tea. She went back into the kitchen and took down the porcelain jug where she stored money. She let out a little scream in surprise when she looked inside. She saw it was filled with bills. A few were red dollar bills, some green $5, and gray 10s, a few bronze 50s. By far the most were blue $100 bills. She almost dropped the jug. That would have been bad, because that porcelain milk jug had been in her family for generations. It came from England when the country was still a colony. Her mother's grandmother got it as a wedding gift from the owner of the Cooker estate where she worked as a cook. Putting the jug carefully on the table, she took out the bills and counted them. She counted $1,763. She regularly stored bills in the jug. However, she was really worried about her memory to forget about such a large sum of money. They now had enough money to cover rent for some months and to buy lots of food. When John woke up, she showed him the money and related how completely she had forgotten. He told her about the wishes he made with Vashti. She smiled at the coincidence, but said she would have believed the nice lady would have had a hand in their good fortune if the nice lady had taken the money from her purse and given it to John on the spot. Nevertheless, she wished his other wish came through, and the young lady arrived safely at her destination. It did worry her that he went under the bridge, but she did not bring it up. It was the sort of thing he would always do. Flats did survive. During his convalescence, he was terrified of an Indian nurse named Vashti. This nurse was the favorite of all the patients and staff in the Arima hospital. She was so good with patients that many swore she was solely responsible for their recovery. When he was first discharged from the hospital, he would run in terror from all Indian women. As time went by, he stopped running away. but avoided them as much as he could and never looked into their eyes. He could be found wandering around Arima, unwashed and naked, except for a crocus bag, the local name for burlap bags, tied around his waist. Wholesale traders and shopkeepers discarded them. He would search and choose one that was less tattered than the one he wore. The traders used crocus bags for everything from coffee and cocoa beans to potato and split peas. He ate scraps he found in the trash from fast food places and half-rotten fruit that vendors threw away. As he wandered around, he usually looked at the ground, muttering to himself. Sometimes he stood in the square and searched the trees for apparitions only he could see. The corporal and constable sat in their patrol car watching him. "You recognize that fellow, Corporal?" asked the constable. Yes, from under the bridge up on Pinto Road," replied the corporal. "Is he better off dead?" asked the constable. For him? I don't know. Every life serves a purpose," responded the corporal. "What is his purpose?" asked the constable. Who knows? Maybe he's an example for others," responded the corporal. "A bad example? He was a badger and used to sell drugs," said the constable. Maybe he's a warning, not an inspiration," responded the corporal. "He paid a high price," said the constable. "Yep," responded the corporal.